So what happens when you create something so revolutionary, so successful, that it completely breaks your own system? It's this incredible paradox, and it's exactly what went down with one of the most talked about drugs in, well, forever.
I mean, think about it. On one hand, it's the best problem a company could ever dream of, right? But when that product is a life-changing medicine, that good problem turns into a real crisis for the people who desperately need it.
And that is the exact spot the pharmaceutical giant Novo Nordisk found itself in with Wegovy. They created a global phenomenon, a true blockbuster drug, but then they couldn't actually get it to the millions of people who wanted it. So how did they get into this mess? And more importantly, how did they start to get out of it?
Okay, so here's what we're going to break down today. We'll look at how Wegovy's incredible popularity created a production nightmare. Then we'll get into the surprisingly old-school solution they found, what that means for getting this drug to more people around the world, and finally, what the long-term plan looks like.
All right, first things first, let's just try to get our heads around the massive scale of Wegovy's success and the giant problem it created.
So for anyone who's not familiar, Wegovy, that's the brand name for a drug called semaglutide, is a weekly injection that has shown just stunning results for weight management. And, that kind of effectiveness, well, it pretty much guaranteed that it will become one of the most sought-after drugs on the entire planet.
And when I say the demand was overwhelming, I am not kidding. It was a total tidal wave, fueled by word of mouth, social media, you name it. Novo Nordisk just couldn't make it fast enough. That led to these widespread shortages, which left a ton of patients and doctors really, really frustrated.
So what was the holdup? I mean, were they running out of the actual drug? Well, the answer is a little more interesting than that. And it all comes down to a deceptively simple piece of plastic. So the source of this massive bottleneck was actually one of Wegovy's biggest selling points, the delivery system. The drug comes in this sleek, single-use auto-injector pen. For patients, it's amazing. Super simple, literally one click and you're done. But behind that incredible convenience lies a huge manufacturing headache, actually assembling and filling millions of these complex little devices. And let's be super clear about this. Novo Nordisk had plenty of the actual medicine, the semaglutide. The problem wasn't the drug. It was what they called the fill and finish process, that final, tricky, and slow step of getting the liquid into those special pens. That's where everything ground to a halt. So faced with this very, very modern manufacturing problem, Novo Nordisk turned to a solution that is, believe it or not, surprisingly traditional. And the solution was a classic trade-off. You've got the high-tech, super easy-to-use pen that was a production nightmare. So what did they do? They went back to the simple, humble glass vial and syringe. Now, it's definitely less convenient for the user, no question, but, and this is the key, it is way, way easier and faster to produce. It directly attacks that supply bottleneck.
Using the vial means patients have to manually draw up the right dose into a syringe. It's a process that's probably familiar to anyone who's ever used insulin. Yeah, it's a definite step back in convenience from the one-click pen, but it really gets to the heart of the trade-off. You sacrifice a little bit of that ease of use for a massive increase in availability.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This move wasn't just about fixing a supply chain problem. Nope, it was also a huge strategic pivot designed to open up Wegovy to a whole new world of patients. So who is this vial version really for? Well, it's aimed squarely at two major groups: patients in the US who are on Medicaid, and maybe even more importantly, patients in lower and middle-income countries all over the world. These are markets where that expensive, complicated pen just wasn't a realistic option.
So this old-school approach, it suddenly becomes the key to unlocking global health equity. It's a strategy to get a breakthrough drug into the hands of people who would otherwise have absolutely no chance of getting it. It fundamentally changes the entire global market for Wegovy.
Okay, so is the vial a permanent fix or just a temporary band-aid? Let's take a look at the long-term plan. First, let's just talk about the level of commitment here. Novo Nordisk is investing a staggering $6 billion to expand its manufacturing. This is not a small fix. This is a massive overhaul of their entire supply chain to try and meet the demand they see coming.
And you have to understand, this is a long-term game. We are still in a period of shortages right now. The big factory expansions, those don't even start until late 2025, and they won't be fully up and running until 2029. And that's where the vial fits in perfectly. It isn't just a temporary patch. It's the critical bridge that will supplement the supply while the company builds out for the future.
The whole story really leaves us with a fascinating question, doesn't it? We usually think of medical breakthroughs as needing these super high-tech, futuristic delivery systems. But the Wegovy Paradox, it suggests that maybe, just maybe, the key to unlocking global access for a modern miracle drug is a simple, old-school glass vial. It makes you wonder, what other incredible innovations could reach the entire world if we were just willing to go back to basics?